two committee meetings, the first of which is the Finance and Personnel. This is chaired by Councilmember Crowell and joined by Council Members Reisner, Kotsis, and Smedley.
Thank you, President Nisley. The first item on our agenda this evening is the Property and Liability Self-Insurance Pool. This is our Public Entities Pool, or PEP. And I would like to introduce Andrew Chicky from the City Administration. Andrew?
Good evening. Thank you, Councilmember Crowell, members of Finance and Personnel. We're going to speak briefly this evening about our self-insurance, so property insurance, liability insurance. A little bit of background. For many, many years, we've been with an organization called the Ohio Municipal Joint Self-Insurance Pool, at least since the mid-90s. And it served us well for a number of years. At one point, it was endorsed by the Ohio Municipal League. But more recently, in our conversations with our local agent, which is John Miller of Matthews Insurance, he had suggested that we take a second look at our insurance coverage, that there might be opportunities for us to improve our coverage, reduce liabilities, and to save some money in the process. So we're looking for a win-win-win, and we solicited some quotes to do that. And we found, I shouldn't say we found, but John Miller had suggested that we reach out to PEP, which is a version of a self-insurance pool. It is endorsed by the Ohio Municipal League and has been since 2017. I'm going to turn it over to Andy Leach and his team to introduce themselves, explain the coverage, some of the differences between what we've currently have, and some of the enhancements that we could experience, not just financially, but also from a coverage standpoint, that I think is really important for the city, that if we're looking at the long-term health of the city, there are some opportunities for us that Andy and his team will explain in further detail. So without prolonging this introduction, I'll turn it over to Andy. And if you have a share screen or something like that, I think that can be helpful too. Thanks.
Thank you, Andrew. So my name is Andy Leach, and we're with Burnham and Flower. And besides me is Thomas Welsh. He's the director of the program, which he'll be reviewing everything with you guys this evening. But just feel free to ask any questions that you guys may have. Okay.
So I guess my first question is, we had sent just a very basic coverage overview, or a program overview. Does anybody have that available right now? Did we had sent, or can we send it to them? We probably can't send it to them real quick, can we? Probably can.
And do you remember who you sent it to earlier?
I had sent it to Andrew. I just don't know if you sent it out to everybody or not, Andrew.
We do have the presentation on our shared drive. Yes, we do have that. Okay. And we have a summary. Mm-hmm. Correct. Okay. And we've had a chance to look at it. Yes.
Okay. So
go ahead.
No, go ahead. Mm-hmm.
I can either, we can take a second and pull it up if you'd like and try to share it. That might take a few seconds, or if you've reviewed it, we just wanted to go through about 10, 15 minutes and do a basic overview of what the program is. Yes, sir.
I think it might be good to do share screen. That way the viewing audience, the citizens of Athens, could be following right along with you.
Okay. Okay. Andy is going to pull that up.
Do I have to email too?
Actually, you know what? It was on our email. You emailed it to them, right?
While they're doing that, I want to, I don't think I clarified what PEP stands for, which is the Public Entities Pool of Ohio. And it's been in existence since the late 80s. At one point, the city of Athens was a member of the Public Entities Pool, and As I said, we had in the mid 90s became a member of the OMJSP. So we do have some familiarity with PEP, and that's the easy way to remember it. It's a little bit easier than OMJSP, actually.
Andrew, I'm curious, maybe this was already mentioned and I missed it, but how do these two gentlemen, Andy and Thomas, relate to the PEP program?
They administer it.
Okay.
They are a part of that. Burnham and Flower Insurance Group oversees the program, and it's not just for city and municipalities. It's also, there's an arm extension that operates with villages and townships, and they have their own insurance pool as well. And I'm sure that they'll probably share that, but I'm stalling for time. So,
well, you're doing it pretty effectively. Thank you.
Okay, got it.
Okay, you are sharing your screen, it says.
The other option for us to consider is Scott or Ryan. We do have this on a shared Google Drive. And if you could if Scott or Ryan, if you're able to call it up, then they could just say next page, next page, next page, which may be the easiest at this point. I'm not sure.
It's really, it really is about a three-page overview, touching on some of the highlights. If you wanted to pull that up, certainly you could do that.
I'll take a look on the drive, President Isley, and see if I can find it. What exactly was the document called again?
This one's called the PEP proposal, and it's in the shared drive under the meetings for tonight.
Yeah, thank you.
It would be the summary, right? Yeah.
That's the one you wanted, the 9-pager? Right?
It's going to be the meeting proposal. Yeah, City of Athens Committee Meeting Proposal 3-8. And I have it pulled up, but for some reason it won't let me share it. I'm not sure.
Oh, it's not sharing it.
Share screen.
Is that it?
Is this the one you're looking for?
That looks correct. There should be another one that has the executive summary as well.
There is one titled PEP summary.
Okay, yeah. Okay, do you have it available now? There we go. That's the one.
There it is. Okay.
Okay.
Yep, that's the one. I apologize.
No, that's all right. I mean, this just happens in getting a meeting set up, especially with Zoom. We're ready to go.
So yeah, this is just a very basic 3-page document here, 3 or 4-page document that highlights some of the key benefits. As you can see, public entities pool started back in 1987, really at a time when public entities really had a difficult time finding affordable insurance. So the law was passed to allow these types of pooling arrangements to begin. It's been a very successful program for many, many years, and has now grown to over 560 members. As mentioned earlier, it's been recently endorsed in 2017 by the Ohio Municipal League, and the OML did vet a number of insurance operations and just felt that PEP had the best coverage, cost, service, stability. Those are kind of the key pieces in your insurance program. And so we went through a few items here. So you have actually sent the required notice of possible withdrawal to the Ohio Municipal Joint Self-Insurance Pool. So you've satisfied that contractual obligation already. This would go into effect April 1st, 2021, should you choose to go with PEP. Our proposal is for $250,021. So that's about a 7% reduction in cost. You'll see just almost $18,000. And, my honest opinion is yes, there's some cost savings, but that wouldn't necessarily be the key reason to move. I think when you look at coverage, when you look at some of the value-added services that PEP offers, there's really no comparison. And of course, the financial stability is probably the most important. You'll see what your current price is there. Your expiring price was that $268,000 roughly. And then we go into a little bit of detail about some of the key items when it comes to cost savings and stability. So really, PEP prides itself on stable rates. So it's not going to be common to come in at one rate and increase the rates the following year or down the road. That's the pooling structure that PEP follows really does keep it independent from the fluctuations in the market. So, especially now is a great time to be a member of PEP. There's a lot of stability in rate there. PEP is not an assessable program, so there's not a situation where you would pay your premium this year and then be assessed because of an audit or something like that down the road or following year because of claims experience or anything like that. You just pay the one annual contribution to the pool. There's just some key financial items there that we wanted to bring to your attention. You'll see the sheer size difference. PEP assets approaches $55 million versus your current program is about 1.5 million. Liabilities, most pools attempt to try to get to about a 2-to-1 assets to liabilities ratio. PEP's currently sitting at about 3-to-1. And then, of course, the net position is about that $38.5 million. PEP does pride itself on its rating. It wants to prove to members and prospective members that it's financially sound. So it seeks out a third-party rating. So a company called Demotech does provide a financial rating. You've heard of AM Best ratings for insurance companies. Demotech rates pooling arrangements, and they've given PEP their highest rating, which is that AAA. Moving down to the next page, just wanted to touch on some key coverage highlights. You would not have an aggregate limit with PEP on any of your lines of liability coverage. So you have that $5 million per occurrence limit, and there's no max per year on any line of coverage. So that's a key benefit. Any defense costs are paid in addition to the settlement limit. So let's say you could have up to a $5 million settlement. You may have $1 million, $2 million, 500,000, whatever that may be in defense costs that would also be paid by the pool rather than depleting that limit. We do include the cyber coverage, which is a very hot topic right now, of course. So we have $5 million in cyber coverage versus the $1 million that you have now. And then we include some coverage for first party expense. If you did have a cyber breach, there may be some cost directly to the city to get your systems back up and running, potentially set up credit monitoring, those types of things for those that have been affected. So that's where that $250,000 comes into play. There is what's called blanket coverage for your buildings and contents. So as an example, you have a building, City Hall is about $7.1 million. That could end up costing $8 million to replace when it's all said and done. So you would have, because of the blanket, you can use your total insured values to pay for any one building, which your total insured values are $141 million. So you'd have plenty of coverage there. The inland marine valuation, we cover your mowers, your tractors, your portable equipment at replacement cost versus the actual cash value. We do offer replacement cost coverage for emergency vehicles as well. So for your brand new Pierce pumper, 2021 Pierce pumper, it's over $700,000. If something were to happen to that, we would replace it with another new one, and you wouldn't be limited to the $707,000. We'd go over and above that cost. That's how that emergency guaranteed replacement cost would work. I guess I'll just make a broad statement right now. The pool has really done a nice job over the past few years of adding to its coverage menu just to stay ahead of many of the trending exposures that are in the marketplace right now. So completely revised its casualty and property documents to make sure that they don't want to deny claims. So they things that cities and villages and entities are facing, they want to make sure that they've added coverage for those types of things. Extended reporting coverage is available as well. If the pool decides to withdraw from PEP sometime down the road, there is a coverage available to leave all those known and unknown claims with the pool as well. Stability. Touched on the AAA rating. What we pride ourselves on too is the 99% retention of membership. We think it's pretty important that members really find no reason to leave the pool. So we're pretty happy that we do experience that 99% retention. We know that the market's pretty volatile right now, and the pooling mechanism does keep members independent from those ups and downs in the market. You'll see the number of members there. That includes over 50 cities. And just reiterating the net position again. I think what's also important is because PEP has been able to establish a strong net position and has some money that they can pour back into services. They've done that. The board of directors, really understands that this is not a program that's for profit, and anytime there's any money that they can pour back into services, they will. So you'll see a nice menu of services there. And of course, that other document that you have goes into more detail as well. But Berman Flower, we work with over 1,500 public entities in Ohio and continue to grow. We certainly have built our business as well with working with local agencies. We feel it's important to have somebody locally, boots on the ground, and that has relationships and kind of has a pulse on what's going on at the city. You will have access to annual risk management. You'll have a risk manager that's yours that will be available to you at any time. If they don't hear from you, they'll certainly set up an annual meeting to just try to eliminate risk wherever they can. Our claims team, that's all they do is public entities. So they're very well versed in public entity claims and really claims do get taken care of very quickly and efficiently because of that. We have a panel council that of experts that, depending on the type of claim, if it's a police professional claim, you'll have a council that are experts in police professional versus potentially, public officials claim. You might have a different counsel for that. You have access to an online resource library as well that has a number of great resources. Legal support. So we talked earlier at the last meeting that even if your law director wanted to reach out to insurance legal support, there's some time there allotted to and it's free. It's free access to PEP's legal team. You have a cyber specialist available, which is also important, and then the industrial appraisals. That's a program that started 3 years ago, and every PEP member will receive a full industrial appraisal now. which will give you a really good idea of what your replacement cost values on your buildings are. And then there's a PEP Plus grant as well that's available it's a reimbursement up to $1,000 for education safety expenses. Some key references there as well. We encourage you to reach out to those folks. Can't scare it. The OML executive director would be happy to chat with any of you, as well as the other references there. Let's see, the screen is gone. So we also included just a list of other members that you'll see. So you have the Athens County members, as well as the Otarma members. Go for it. There you go. Yeah. Yep. So you have the Athens County members of Otarma. The Otarma is PEP's sister pool that insures only townships. You'll see at the bottom of that page some other cities. Those that are highlighted, those are the ones that have moved from your current program. The Ohio Municipal Joint Self-Insurance Pool. Those highlighted ones are that, and then those in bold are just some of the larger entities that might be a little closer to you as well. I don't think I'll go into a lot of detail here, other than this is your coverage summary. A couple of the key coverages that I wanted to point out that we don't necessarily need to go through here, but when we were going through your current program, there was employment stopgap coverage, which is essentially your employer's liability. You only had $1 million there. Employer's liability is there in the event that, somebody, maybe it's an employee, feels they were injured due to the negligence of you as the employer. We have $5 million there versus the $1 million that you have. The other key one was the municipal attorney and law director. You had $1 million. We have $5 million for the law director and law director's team. And then I did see that emergency medical services liability was also not included in your coverage, which is essentially your medical malpractice for your first responders. So for your police and fire. So that was something that I thought stood out as a very important coverage. We had $5 million versus the zero coverage with your current. You'll see the overview there. You'll see all your included liability limits. $5 million across the board for all of your lines. Your auto physical damage coverage is almost $6 million in total insured values. The cyber coverage is reiterated there as well. And then on the last page, you'll see your total insured values for all of your property. And then we do include some crime coverage as well, up to $500,000. Now we were talking today about bonds, so we were able to get an indication of what it would cost to add faithful performance coverage, because now there's a situation where the law was passed to allow those that were required to be bonded. You can actually buy insurance. Faithful performance of duty coverage for those that were supposed to have been bonded in the past. So we would have that availability if you decided to go in that direction, where you do away with your bonds and just get all that exposure covered through the insurance program. The cost right now for 26 people to be bonded at $200,000 total, which was your highest bond amount that you needed. You're required to have your highest bond amount was $200,000. Would be an additional $2,900. So that's something we just put together today, based on what we had found out about who was bonded and who. So, and that's really all we had for prepared remarks. Happy to answer a number of questions.
Can I add something to your latest comments there? We did talk about this, and the auditor's office, who is the caretaker of the bonds for the city employees, is 100% in favor of this. I actually think we have 28 people. Okay. It might be 26 bonded. And in the past, all of us elected officials start our bonds on January 1st, but there are a dozen people in municipal court who start on the date they're hired. And we have had issues trying to keep the bonds renewed in a timely manner and things like that. This amount, although I haven't gone in and added up, and the 200,000 is only a handful of people. The majority of us, I think I'm at the top, but are quite a bit less. But especially in court. But sounds like a good deal to me, just for the record. And as he said, the legislature passed new law saying that we could do this as an option to the bonds, which are several $100s a piece every time we have to do that. I do have one question for you, if council doesn't mind that I go ahead. Really, the mayor and council should go first, or is that? I guess my question is, we've already bonded a lot of people for this year. Like all of us sitting in on this meeting are bonded already. So say for the mayor and I, we're bonded. This is our second year of this term. We've paid for a bond through the next 2 years after this. Mm-hmm. I don't know. In the past, if we have somebody leave office, we just switch it over to whoever takes their place. But I'm not sure. When would this does this have to be built into our new contract that will take effect April 1st? Is it part of our contract agreement policy?
No, we can actually add the coverage anytime throughout the year.
Okay.
Yeah. So if whatever makes the most logistical sense for you and financial sense, we can accommodate that. Okay. It would depend on, from a financial perspective, it would depend on whether or not the bonding company would reimburse the unused term, which most times that's not the case. Right. So we would talk through all that to see what made the most sense.
Thank you. Yeah, we can ask about that. We basically have two insurance companies that do our bonds. Maybe it's almost 50-50, I would say, between the two local agencies. So I'd like to ask about that. In the end, it might be worth it to go ahead and add this into the policy, but I'm not sure we want to switch this all over right away. And I guess the other thing is council will have to change our city code that allows us to do these faithful performance of duties coverage rather than the bonding, because in our code it lists the bonds and who has to be, like, say, I think I'm auditor is 200,000, mayor's 200,000, deputy auditor is 150,000, things like that, or tax administrator. So I think all that is in our code. And so Debbie might remember that better, but so that those changes would have to be made by council also, so that we would be in line with our rules.
Right.
So if that's okay, we can get back with Andrew and talk to you more about it, and then everybody else can weigh in on any other things to do with that. So thank you.
Yeah, and just to add one more note to that, you'd also have to pass a resolution that allows you to go with the bonds.
So, and Lisa has a copy of it, and I think Andrew does too. So I sent both of them copies of that resolution. It's a sample resolution, but a discussion with Andrew today, just with the new House bill being passed, there might be some wording that needs to be changed to that ordinance for the sample resolution, just because of having the correct ORC code in there. So just minor tweaks that you guys will have to do, but we can work around that too, because that bill comes into effect on April 12th. So.
Thank you, Auditor Hecht and Deputy SSD Andrew and Andy and team for the presentation tonight. As Andrew explained to me this afternoon, sort of coming in just very recently, so we're still working through a lot of this. As I understand, the faithful performance of duty is the House Bill 444, which has allowed these changes to happen. And as I understand it, this would improve our coverage and also save some money. So those seem like good things to me, although I'm not going to pretend that I understand all of these details, and I appreciate the auditor chiming in as we move through this. I'm also to understand that this would be an ordinance, not a resolution that would run in tandem with our insurance ordinance. Are there any questions from the Finance and Personnel Committee for any of our guests? Or yes, Member Katsas.
Yes, Member Crowell, thank you. And so the ordinance, and when you were talking about the ordinance, I had an additional question. Would the ordinance then just be for the term of the policy? And then the second question I had was, it seems like this is a very comprehensive, inclusive policy that covers a lot of different liabilities that a city could encounter. Do we have any other policies that we have to run in parallel with this, or is this kind of just does everything?
So the first question is, you'd essentially be passing a resolution to allow you to purchase faithful performance insurance coverage from anybody moving forward. From this point on, you're just saying that you're okay with that rather than going with bonds. So the one resolution would satisfy that requirement according to the ORC, and it wouldn't have to correlate with any type of policy. Okay. The second question, I don't believe there's any specific exposure that you would need a separate policy for, unless Andy, you're aware of anything. I'm not aware of a specific policy. Some entities may have some exposures that the pool may not want, like let's say it's a, amusement rides or, so
it's something out of the ordinary.
That where you might have to get a separate policy. But as of right now, as it stands right now, there are no specific exposures that you would need a separate policy for that we're aware of.
Okay, perfect, and thank you. And so and I just to give you just a little bit of something that you probably don't even need to know about, but like for example, this City Council reviews a parking contract every 2 or 3 years when it comes forward. So I would assume that we would, this policy would have a term, or would it be revisited at some other point with some other council when it's time to renew? Maybe that's more for administration to comment on, or maybe I'm just unaware that maybe this just runs in perpetuity from here forward.
So to answer that question, we renew our insurance yearly. So every year in January, we get a renewal notice. And I want to recognize John Miller, who is is an attendee this evening. Typically, since he's our local agent, he'll send us a reminder and renewal documents. We update our schedules. So all of the vehicles and new buildings and all those different things that we have to run the city, we review all of that annually. And the coverage date typically starts in April. So it takes a couple of months to compile all of this information, review it, update it. So in the same way that we're doing our current policy, we have an opportunity, so long as we give appropriate notice, to seek out other options every year. And that would be no different in this case as well. So if we're very happy with what they're doing, it's a continuation. We don't have to have a new ordinance. We don't have to have a new resolution or anything. It's a continuation. If, like in this case, where we are exploring other options from what we're currently doing, we had to send a 90-day notice that we were seeking out other options to our joint pool. And then that released us to find quotes and information. So it'd be no different than what we're currently doing. It'd be very, very similar. So we have the ability annually to make a decision, so long as we have enough notice to renew or not renew. And that's a typical thing. We want to make sure that our coverage, sometimes we discover that there are additional liabilities that we need to take a second look at. And a great example is cyber liability. 5 years ago, 10 years ago, that wasn't as much of I'm going to use their words, exposure, but more recently with hacking and ransomware and all those kinds of things, that's become a more significant issue. And in our old pool, or our current pool, we have a separate rider insurance that kind of runs in tandem. So we contact separately a separate insurance group to, if we have to make a claim through cyber. In this case, we wouldn't do that. We would talk to our local agent, set up a claim, and go through a process like we would if a vehicle was in an accident. The other positive with that is the amount of coverage that we have currently versus what is being proposed is much greater. So in the event that something catastrophic were to happen, and hopefully that never happens, but let's say we were locked out of all of our financial systems, and that's very serious, some sort of terrorist attack, we have a much better position to get up and running again, and then work through the back end parts of figuring out how to go after the claim and get reimbursement for additional costs, and making sure that our citizens who we're caring for with their information are covered appropriately. So long answer to a short question, I guess.
That's helpful information. Thank you, Andrew. Yes, Member Smedley.
Thank you, Member Crowell, and thank you to our guests. Appreciate the overview. This is a question mostly for administration. As already has been mentioned, it seems like there's a number of benefits to going this direction. The plan seems to be more modern and have a number of supports available. Have you identified any cons to moving in this direction that we haven't gone over yet?
We have not, Member Smedley. And to kind of echo a little bit further, what Andrew was saying, it's administrative as we move forward, given the role that council will play to go ahead and authorize this change. It's no different than us transitioning from our former TPA for healthcare coverage to our current TPA. So it essentially, I can give updates to council if you so choose as we roll forward. If we opt to go down this road, and give council updates on savings and the advantage of going to a new administrator as we move forward. So we've not identified any cons. I mean, at this point, it seems like the benefits completely outweigh where we're at right now at this point. So I'll leave it there.
I would add that it's not necessarily common, but we have a long-standing relationship with our current carrier, and the individuals that we work with, I don't want to speak for the law director, but she has a great relationship with the legal team from our current insurance. And we had asked, are there opportunities to carry on some of those relationships? Not the claims agents necessarily, but for legal advice and that kind of thing. That's something that it sounded like is an open discussion and dialogue. If we have a preferred lead legal agency that we want to consult with, that can be worked in. To this point, it seems that the growing relationship with PEP and the individuals, I'm excited about. I'm excited that, again, I keep shouting out John Miller, but having a local agent here, someone that we have a long-standing relationship with, that we trust, that knows the ins and outs of the nuances of our coverage, is a really helpful thing. So we kind of carry John with us and Matthew's Insurance with us as we're going through the process. So there's some continuity.
Thank you, Andrew. Committee, any other comments from F&P? Other council members, do you have any questions for our guests? Yes, Councilmember Clodfelder.
I guess this question is perhaps better aimed at Andrew Chicky, if he's willing. I was just wondering if, in fact, we give the green light to this, when would the coverage begin?
We would begin coverage April 1.
Okay, so we are trying to move that quickly. So if we need to have city council ordinances, are we going to have to suspend the rules? Or, okay.
We would. As we work through this, getting the information back. Again, remember, this is a long process. We started, at the beginning of the year in January. As we're reviewing this information, we had to send a notice. So there had to be a time that elapsed with our current policy. And then as soon as we got a meeting together with PEP and got a review of the information, we got this on the schedule at the first committee meeting that we could. Obviously, time is of the essence because we don't want to lapse in coverage. We want to be covered, obviously, for any event. And with our current coverage ending 31 March, we've got to have replacement in place by April 1st.
Yes, Member Reisner.
I'm a little bit concerned about rushing this through like this. I realize there's a deadline for the coverage, and you don't want to lapse. But on the other hand, publicly it looks bad. I'll put it bluntly. We're talking about insurance. We're talking about money. We're talking about competition. It kind of gives the impression the council is trying to rush this through and cut out everybody else. Just putting it out there, but that's what it looks like.
Mayor Patterson?
If I may, I mean, it's a longer process on the administrative side to get to this point in time. And I believe that the cost savings outweigh anything on the expense side. So Councilmember Reisner, while I appreciate your comment, I think if we're saving the taxpayer dollars and going on a different route than we have for the past since the mid 90s, I don't view it the same way that you do, that this is looking like anything is being rushed through. We just have a timeline like we do for a lot of things, i.e. the budget of 2021 back in December of last year. There are certain things that you have, don't have a whole lot of control over in terms of having to get things done in an expeditious way, especially when it comes to cost savings.
Appreciate your comment, Member Reisner. Yes, President Nisley?
Yeah, and sitting somewhere in between, because I, in part, acknowledge Councilmember Reisner's concern about suspending rules. So what we may need to consider is a special session. We do have a fifth Monday. So we may need to, we'll work with the administration on making sure that there is adequate notice. I think that's the concern too, adequate notice to the public of where we're moving on this. Thank you.
Member Katsas?
Yes, Member Crowell, thank you. And just circling back to just to get a little bit of clarity, the administration, the mayor mentioned that maybe moving forward we could actually see these programs or packages on an annual basis. Is that correct? I mean, I know we wouldn't have any additional decision in it, but I think just having the information would allow council to kind of understand another arm of what the city has to work with every year.
Yeah, Mayor, go ahead.
I would be more than happy, Member Katsas, to speak at the beginning of each year or whatever, much like I will be soon, talking about our complete streets and what we have done. I don't think it's something that needs to go into the ordinance itself. I just think that it's something that I could certainly report out the performance of this program as we move forward. I think that's good in terms of transparency for anyone who's watching city council members or meetings on an annual basis to kind of see how we are performing with things like this program as we do with other programs in the city of Athens. So I'm fine with that.
Perfect. Thank you. Because you never know when you may have somebody working in the insurance trade that may become a council member.
Member Grace?
Thank you, Member Crowell. Just Member Reisner mentioned sort of like the fact that this is a switch from one provider to another. And I know that Mr. Chicky has mentioned John Miller, our agent, who is here local, and that this was something that was brought to the city administration as something we might want to consider, is looking at perhaps better coverage at lower cost. And I know on a much smaller scale, individuals, talk to their insurance companies like, hey, I think I could save you some money and offer you better coverage. And so we switched. Were there any other options that have been already reviewed by administration, or I don't know how many entities compete for this type of providing a service to cities. So just to sort of follow on what Member Reisner was saying, are there some other options out there that we're not seeing by moving quickly? But I'd like clarity on that. But mostly, I think if we're getting better coverage for less money, that seems like a solid direction to go. And even if we do have to make a decision quickly, I believe our residents would be in favor of a lower premium.
So,
yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. To clarify a little bit, what we're talking about, this type of coverage, is very specialized. So it's not necessarily something that we would work through a lot of different local agencies to come up with a competitive bid on, because of the nature of self-insurance and joint pools. I don't know, and I'll defer to PEP as far as other joint insurance pools that exist for Ohio. The only other one that I know is the one that we're in, and PEP. And one of the driving forces behind the changes beyond just the financial piece, but also the endorsement of the OML. And we're moving from being a big fish in a small pond to being a smaller fish. And that's a good thing in this instance. We carry a lot of burden with OMJSP, considering they have very few clients to pool with. So if we're talking about trying to have expanded coverage, there's only so many other government entities to work with. In this case, the board of directors, the group of vetting of other cities, we have a lot of other resources that we were able to be in contact with, to have the option to review with, to find out how it's working for them and what other options they've had. And by far, the feedback that I've received has been that this has been a very good thing. And we've got 15 out of 16 townships that are in this as well. So I think that that's a pretty resounding endorsement for the direction that we'd like to go, as well as the city of Nelsonville and Leax Water District. So I'll defer over to Pep if there's anything else to add there.
Well said. You're correct. It is very specialized. If you look, nationwide, about 85% of public entities now are in some sort of self-insurance pooling arrangement. There are a number of smaller regional pools in the state of Ohio. The pool that you have now is certainly a declining pool. PEP is certainly growing. PEP and Burnham and Flower handle the vast majority. We're probably the largest when you combine the township pool with PEP. We're up to about 1,500 public entities. So there are, but most of the pooling arrangements are more regional. There is a pool out there that does quite a few public entities called the Ohio Plan. And they're a solid option as well. But we have the vast majority, and I think we've certainly presented a lot of value added benefits, not just cost coverage, but value added services that will go a long way to benefit the city. And we'd certainly love to earn your business and looking at. I know it seems like a rush to you, but I think it's been said that this did start months ago, and we're kind of at the final stage now to put the coverage in place effective 4/1.
Appreciate the information. Any other questions from City Council, administration? Member Reisner.
Yeah, I just want to point out one thing. I understand that a great deal of work has been done on the back end, but council has rules, and one of the rules is 3 readings and weeks in between. And the idea is to give the public and other experts and critics an opportunity to weigh in, look at it, and come to a decision in a reasonable manner, not being rushed, not being forced, not being pushed. And that's the reason why we do that. So yes, I do appreciate all the work that has been done here to and up to this point. But I still want to remember and remind people that council has rules for a reason. And that's the reason why we have the rule. So what we do at this point, extra sessions, or if you want to suspend the rules for a second reading, whatever happens. But I think publicly we need to remind ourselves, we are council. We're not the administration. We are the people that will pass the approval, and we have the rules to slow things down if necessary. So I'll get off my soapbox now. I have done my preaching for this evening. So thank you.
I appreciate your preaching, Member Reisner. Those are excellent, valid points, and it's a good reminder to have that on this subject. Any other comments or questions? Okay, thank you to our presenters for being here tonight. You're, I believe, welcome to stick with us, or we're going to move on to our next item in our agenda.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everybody, for your time.
Thank you. The next item on the Finance and Personnel Committee agenda is the Assistant Director pay rate. Council is aware that we have a new Assistant Director for Engineering and Public Works. He was started at a pay rate of $29.06. As you may recall from previous discussions, he was a former city employee, and when he left the city last year, he was making $31.49 an hour. The city administration would like his pay rate to be $31.71 an hour, which is the midpoint of the grade he is now in, grade 9. He was last in grade 8. And because this is the midpoint of grade 9 and yet a new position, it requires council approval because it's more than 10% over the starting rate. This is an individual who has 36 years of experience with the city. And the city administration would also request that this pay rate increase, be retroactive to his start date of March 1st. Are there any questions about the EPW Assistant Director pay rate? Yes, Member Katsas.
Just my personal thought on it. I see no issue with that.
Thank you. Appreciate the comment. City administration, anyone else like to comment on this? Okay, wonderful. We'll see that come next week. And the next item on our agenda is appropriations. Sticking with EPW, we have a few items to discuss. The EPW is requesting $13,000 to come from the Water Plant Professional Services Fund. This money is for water tank inspections. The city received a letter from the Ohio EPA that the city needs to do these inspections. They were scheduled initially for to be done next year, but after receiving the letter, the city needs to complete these inspections in 2021. So this funds, the $13,000, will cover the cost to inspect 3 tanks this year. Yes, Member Reisner.
Are we talking the reservoir tanks?
Mayor Patterson is shaking his head yes, the reservoir tanks.
Which ones in particular?
The administration would take that?
I don't know off the top of my head, Member Reisner. I can get that information for you as to which ones EPA, where we're at with getting these inspected.
Okay, yes, just wondering.
Anyone else from Finance and Personnel? Okay, yes, Member Clotfelder.
Perhaps you said this and I missed it, but I'm wondering if we'll be able to do these inspections with municipal employees, or will we need to bring inspectors from outside the city?
No, we'll be bringing inspectors from who specialize on tank inspections. You know, we have that in the past. We've actually had divers dive inside the Highland Park Reservoir. It's a highly specialized inspection that needs to take place inside these reservoirs.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. We'll see that next week. And the other item for appropriations is a request for $30,000 from the same fund, the Water Plant Professional Services Fund, to complete a risk and resilience assessment. This assessment, this plan is required by the Ohio EPA. It's an update to a vulnerability assessment that was completed in 2004. Any questions about the risk and resilience assessment? Okay, and other council members, city administration? Seeing none, thank you very much. That completes Finance and Personnel, President Nisley.
You're muted.
Thanks. We'll move on to City and Safety Services, and that's chaired by Council Member Grace and joined by Council Members Fall and Clodfelter.
Thank you, President Nisley. And we are switching committees, but staying on topic of water reservoirs and EPW and finances. It's a familiar theme this evening. So for our committee, the Kimes booster station at the Kimes location is an ongoing project. This is a project that is underway. I have an update from Director Adine that the building foundation is nearly complete. The prefabricated structure has been ordered by the contractor, and the project is scheduled to be complete this year. However, the bids for construction came in higher than anticipated. So they were awardable because they were within the total amount approved by council previously. So they were awardable, but for construction, but there is not enough left for the engineering, the construction engineering that needs to happen. And so the construction engineering includes developing SCADA, which is supervisory control and data acquisition graphics, assisting with the electrical start/checkpoint of the booster station, SCADA review, and ongoing services through the project. So I've communicated back and forth with Director Adine about this project, and some of the tasks that were part of the engineering, the construction engineering, have been completed by city staff, but there are things that we need to still approve finances for. So the current project is at $1,168,450, and the requested increase is $70,000. So this is for again, design engineering, and also includes a approximately 4.1% contingency for the construction contract. The often recommended contingency is 7 to 10%, but the underground work is nearly complete, and so that's where a lot of the issues arise. But because they are coming back needing an adjustment at this point, they'd like to include a bit for contingencies. So are there any questions about the Kimes Water Booster Station project? That is oh, yes, Member Katsas, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. And I just wanted to make just a comment. I think that so this project is about a third of the cost of what the Richland Avenue pedestrian passageway is, and about the same overage. I mean, I think we've understand when we enter into engineering world that so often there are these unknowns that push a project a little bit more than what was anticipated, but it's kind of almost par for course.
Yes, and in this one, Director Adine gave me some specifics of things that the city has proposed and changed that have resulted in decreases, but there were unsuitable soils that needed to be removed for the foundation, and there are just some things that until you check the soil, you're not going to know what you're going to get into, and that was one of the issues with this project. Okay, if there are no other questions or comments from council or the administration, that's all for City and Safety Services this evening.
All right. Thanks so much, Councilmember Grace. And with that, we will stand adjourned at 8:05 p.m.